Remove the banner, Preksha. बेटा, आज हमारा 100th episode है. So we are today at the 100th episode of the coronavirus series, which we have been running since the end of February. 100वें episode के दिन, I wish we never continued this long, but the coronavirus apparently has, so we continue this long. आज की जो लीड स्टोरी है which will be about asymptomatic infections in people जो migrant workers return कर रहे हैं पूरे देश में, उनमें काफी asymptomatic infections मिल रहे हैं. और इसके लिए we'll be talking to an expert in healthcare sector. I'll introduce him once the time comes. But उससे पहले I've got a very special guest, and I have great commendation for his courage and his ability to endure this entire crisis, because the person I'm going to introduce you today, and on his consent, is Mohit Gulati. And Mohit Gulati has, he's a investment, he's a venture capitalist. He's the founder of a venture capitalist fund. He lives in Bombay, and in Mumbai he lives normal life like all of us live. Until one day, not maybe a few days ago, and he'll tell his story, he was diagnosed as corona positive. So he was diagnosed as a case of COVID-19. He was tested positive for coronavirus, and but what makes him the fact that he's able to, despite all that, he's able to hold his own, and he's able to be courageous to not only face the disease, but also to alert everybody around him quite openly, and also to educate people on his Twitter feed and his social media feed that what is the disease like and how does he cope with it. So I'm not going to take much time. I'm going to introduce you to Mohit. Welcome, Mohit, to our. Hello, Mohit, can you get our voice? Right.
Yes, Rajan, I can hear you.
So I really appreciate you coming here. I did listen to your cough, and I suppose there are some symptoms which you have. But I really appreciate you coming here on a very short notice and sharing with us your experience and also what is there for us to learn about it.
Sure.
So tell me, how did you got detected?
So I think it'll be good to just kind of give a backstory, right? Like most Indians, I've been tracking the COVID tracker, and it's been very academic in nature, just looking at how the graph is increasing and numbers keep going up. And like every Indian, you have that attitude, ki boss, this won't happen to me. Anybody else will get it, but I will not get it. So with that same thing in mind, I've been living through the lockdown for the last 50, 60 days, not really going out too much, very selectively wearing a mask at most places where I go out, just regularly buying groceries, vegetables, medicines, like most of the regular Indians. I didn't even line up outside an alcohol shop when the alcohol market was open. So I didn't do any of those, daredevil things. What happened is suddenly at the beginning of last week, I had, this very weird kind of fever, which was not too high. It was about 100 odd degrees, then followed by a little bit of body ache, and just extreme exhaustion. And that's when I just, felt that this doesn't look like a regular flu. There could be something about it. So I didn't want to, spread panic in the building or even, to the BMC and everything else. So I just took an appointment with one of the private labs. I went there myself to get tested wearing a mask. I went all alone. It was more like a test, just for the heck of it. There was no real reason why I had to get the test done. But just to, kind of be socially more aware and not spread the disease if I have it, I just thought I should get myself tested. I had not come in contact with anybody who was COVID positive. I had not gone out too much. I'm very well restricted in the confines of the building that I live in. So yeah, so Friday I gave the test I gave my first test, and I got it positive on Monday early morning. And since then I've just kind of been a little more vocal on social media, just trying to dispel with everyone that listen. This is not the end of the world, and at least younger people like us, we have the ability to fight this. It is a bad flu, no denying it. But with the right amount of medication, with the right amount of rest, we'll surely bounce out of it.
Right. And initially, I read your post on Twitter where you were saying it was initially asymptomatic, right? You did not have symptoms initially, and then they started increasing. And Have they been
Yeah.
building over time? Or what would you see? Like,
So,
have the symptoms?
yeah, so it's a little weird. The symptoms have come and gone. So I had fever for 2 days. I had acute body ache for 4 days. Then I had nothing over the weekend. So actually, I did 3 Zoom calls on the weekend, including one seminar for my building guys on venture capital investing. And which is why on Monday, when the report came positive, everyone was like, "Listen, we just spoke to you yesterday on Zoom, and how has this happened to you?" So I think even within the asymptomatic stage, right? I think the symptoms are very, very different for each person. For some people, there I know a few of my friends who've got COVID positive. They have zero symptoms. They're totally fine. They're living their regular life. In my case, I've had a few symptoms coming in. Like I've been, on the bed today for most part of the day because I've not been up to myself. A little bit of cough is coming and going. But I think the symptoms are very difficult to say that, this is COVID and this is not COVID. It can just look like a regular flu. It can just be a regular sardi khansi for anybody.
Hmm. So, and in terms of the precautions which you're taking in terms of diet, have you taken some advisory? Has somebody advised you on what diet to take or what things to do? What has been your schedule? Is somebody managing it for you, or you are just self-managing it?
No, so I have a servant who lives in my house. But there's a very high chance that even he's asymptomatic. So we are together, all of us managing each other. In terms of diet, I've got, I did a call today with a Harvard professor in medicine. He was COVID positive along with his wife, and he fought it for 27 days. So I was talking to him about diet. I was speaking to, a bunch of my friends who are doctors or, are related to COVID patients. The core thing I've learned is that high vitamin diet, a lot of liquids which are warm in nature have to be consumed. So that's what I've been doing. So I think what I love about India is we have this whole Purane Pushteni nuske which are now coming into the foray. So drinking kada probably wasn't a very very big fad. But I've been drinking a lot of kada. I've been having a lot of turmeric latte, which basically is haldi ka doodh. Uh, so I've, anything and everything which is hot, I've been having that.
Right. And what are you doing for the day? I mean, how are you keeping yourself busy besides
Um,
sleeping?
so yeah, so a little bit of sleeping, a lot of Netflix, a lot of Zoom seminars. I've been talking to few of my portfolio companies also. I've just been trying to live a normal life through the confines of my room because I think what I've realized is the COVID battle is two front, right? One is the health side, and second is the mental side of it.
Absolutely.
When you kind of lock yourself into a room, you also lock your mind, and then you start getting all these negative thoughts. You start thinking about mortality rate. You start thinking about what will happen if I don't get out of it, and all sorts of things which you're not supposed to even think about. So what I've tried to do is keep my life as normal as possible, talk to as many people as I can. I've told everyone, listen, I don't want any sympathies with regards to testing COVID-19 positive. It's just a flu. Like if you get a common cold or a viral, I don't call you up and say, Arey, I feel so bad about you. It's fine. It happens. We will get out of it. Let's just live our life in as regular ways as possible.
And Mohit, there's also several cases where people are very stigmatized by not reporting or feeling very scared that if people find out around me, say people in your society, what would be their reaction? Did that concern you, and how has that turned out?
Oh, absolutely. It was my concern number one. The fact that despite having fever and a lot of body ache, I went to Metropolis to get myself tested. I didn't allow them to come to my society was exactly this reason because I knew the moment somebody's coming in for COVID testing to my building, my society will panic. That's what I thought. Now, just to give you a perspective, I live in a gated community made by Lodha. So there are about close to 1,000 flats around us across 7 towers. We have a lot of people around. So I was very scared. I thought, they will throw me out of the building. They'll say, "Ki boss, we don't want you in the building at all." But the society has been so forthcoming, and this is what I love about India. Our one of the key things about our education from the day we are born is this community living that we live in, right? So it doesn't matter if you're Hindu, Muslim, Christian, Sikh, Isai, it doesn't matter. In the time of need, we as Indians come close and help each other. So I've had people dropping off groceries outside my house. I've had people dropping food outside my house, medicine out of my house. I mean, people have just been so incredible. And they've been messaging me things like, so I'm on a cricket group. My cricket captains message me, कि बहुत जल्दी से ठीक हो जा, अपने को cricket खेलना है. So things like that, it's just such an emotional, psychological boost when you have people around you who are comforting and are not paranoid. And I think that's very important, that the media has to, educate people, saying that there is no stigma attached to COVID-19. It can happen to anybody. It's not something to be shameful about. You need to, be there for each other, not physically, even just virtually, just being there can get a patient out of it very quickly.
And that's your advice to someone who's showing symptoms, that they should go get themselves tested immediately. What would you advise someone who's showing symptoms? I know a few people who are sneezing or coughing, who have intermittent fever, and they're scared that if that gets revealed, तो मेरा क्या होगा? So what advice will you have for them?
So two advices there. First is monitor your symptoms properly. If you think it's one of the regular coughs that you've had in your life earlier, or just a running nose or something like that, then it's fine. You don't need to go and get yourself tested. You'll be fine. But if you think that there is something amiss, and I think as your body automatically will tell you, you'll either start feeling a lot of pain, you'll have a little bit of breathlessness, a little bit of nausea, your smell might probably go away. If you have those kind of symptoms, only then go and get yourself tested. Number one. Second is, don't be scared about the stigma attached towards testing positive. I think the bigger fault is if you don't test yourself despite having symptoms and live in the same building or in a community, because then you're going to be spreading this all across. And that is so wrong on your part.
Right. Okay. So we have got another expert with us. His name is Kiran Hegde. I'm bringing him in, and Kiran is a healthcare expert. He runs an entrepreneurship, massive entrepreneurship dealing in IT and healthcare and several other things, and a dear friend and also a long associate. Kiran had a question for you, and I'll bring Kiran in for the later segment. But Kiran, you had a question. Why don't you ask him?
Hello, Mohit. Thanks for sharing your story with us. I just had a quick question. It's like when you were speaking of breathlessness, did you ever think of checking your oxygen levels?
Yes, absolutely. I've got a pulse oximeter right here, which I'm practically checking on a every 2-hourly basis. Every single doctor has advised that you need to have one of these at hand.
Okay. And what numbers are you showing? Is it under 90?
No, it's not under 90. If it is under 90, then I would have not been allowed home isolation. I'm at 98. Last I checked, I was between 97 to 99.
Okay.
Which shows very, very decent levels.
Because there was some discussion about using pulse oximeters to do an initial bit of testing for symptomatic patients. So that was one of the reasons why I was asking this question.
No, you're absolutely bang on right. A pulse oximeter, I've done a lot of research, including speaking to that Harvard professor. Everyone said that pulse oximeter is one of the first indication of COVID-19, more so if the number comes below 90. So you're absolutely right. I would advocate everyone to have one of these in their either in their buildings or at least at home.
So Kiran, since you're working on the pulse oximeter story, and I want to just, now that it has come up and we thought we'll bring it later, but do you think it's a better device than those thermometers which are selling, those infrared thermometers? Do you think this is more effective, given that a lot of people don't have fever?
I think you cannot do a like-to-like comparison, because the wireless thermometers you have to use for monitoring and testing people who are walking across you. The moment I touch this, you cannot touch it, because I'm a COVID positive patient, right? So you don't want people to be spreading COVID from one to another by just using a pulse oximeter. So unless you can develop a wireless form of this, because what happens is you have to basically plug it into your finger. This is what I'm doing. Now, each time I'm using it, I technically hand sanitize my finger. But if I forget it, I will leave germs back onto the device. And if I plug this into your finger, there's a high chance that you might contract COVID if your finger comes in contact with your mouth.
Correct. Great. Mohit, I thank you for your time. I understand that you are recovering, and I'm sure that it's only a matter of a few days. And I really wish that you will soon on the cricket field, and your cricket captain is happy to see you there. I really appreciate your courage, and I'm absolutely happy. The reason why we thought we should definitely bring you in is because there's a stigma which is coming in. There's a fear that, what happens if I get detected? So people are rather choosing to hide rather than, come out open, and that is harming not themselves, but as you said, not just themselves, but also people around them. So that's the reason I thought, it's a great thing which you're doing. I saw your Twitter feed. I'm very happy to see that you have the courage to do that, and you are inspiring a lot of people to do the same. Thank you, Mohit, and I wish you to get well soon.
Get well soon, Mohit.
Kiran, so I wanted to discuss with you a few things. We had a few things to discuss. I thought आपको मैं आज जो है lead story जो हमारी थी, we'll bring you in for that. And that story concerns about the asymptomatic infections which are becoming more and more predominant across India. In fact, your lead story we wanted to follow today was that there were some migrants जो कि बिहार से ताल्लुक रखते थे, जो बिहार के थे, और वो पूरी भारत से आपको पता है ट्रेनों में, बसों में वापस आ रहे हैं, और उनमें से कई लोगों के ऊपर सर्वे किया गया कि उनका जो इन्फेक्शन रेट है, क्या उनमें से कुछ लोगों को इन्फेक्शन है। तो जब इन्फेक्शन किया गया तो वो पाया गया कि उसमें एक बड़ा सेगमेंट था। As on May 17th, the state of Bihar tested 8,337 people who had come from outside the state, यानी 8,300 के लगभग लोगों को टेस्ट किया। उन केसेस में 651 यानी 651 tested positive. These were random tests. They were not done because people were showing symptoms. They were done because randomly people had to be tested. Which means that 8% of people who are coming from all over the India to Bihar, these are migrant workers, 8% of them have been tested positive. But the situation gets really bad if you look at migrants who are coming from Delhi. The migrants of Bihar who came from Delhi, in the same test, 835 such people were tested, out of which 289 tested positive, which means about 26% of the total people who came from Bihar, came from Delhi to Bihar, the migrant workers, उनमें से 26% लोगों को कोरोना वायरस का पॉजिटिव टेस्ट दिया गया। अगेन आई मस्ट रिइटरेट कि ज्यादातर लोग एसिम्प्टोमेटिक थे, और एसिम्प्टोमेटिक होने का मतलब ये है कि उनके अंदर सिम्टम्स बहुत कम थे या थे ही नहीं। इसलिए जब वो कहीं बाहर जाएंगे, अगर उनको टेस्ट नहीं किया जाता और वो बाहर जाते हैं तो वो कई लोगों को इन्फेक्ट कर सकते हैं। लेट इट बी साइंटिफिकली, अ पर्सन हु इज एसिम्प्टोमेटिक कैन आल्सो इन्फेक्ट अदर्स। सो इसमें कि सिम्टम नहीं है तो इन्फेक्ट नहीं करेगा, ऐसा नहीं होता। So I wanted to bring an expert in healthcare and IT. So he's a person who deals with data and healthcare, and his name is, as I told you, Kiran Hegde, old friend of mine, and we've done a lot of things together. He's from Bangalore, and he's joining us today. And I wanted to discuss this story in detail because Kiran, you had some radical suggestions on this, and I wanted to discuss and perhaps even debate some of those suggestions. And there are people who are watching, and they will also ask you a lot of questions. So what do you think? Do you think these asymptomatic infections is a matter of great worry?
You've given the numbers for these two places. I would like to add another number for today in Karnataka, the southern part of Karnataka, a district called Mandya. We had 71 cases of positive cases, and all 71 seem to be coming from Mumbai. Migrants who have moved from Mumbai back to Mandya. And yesterday we had about 20 in the same place, which again seem to be indicating that they come from Mandya and from Mumbai. And so people who are coming from elsewhere are showcasing that they are positive. And many of them seem to be asymptomatic. In Karnataka, there's about 80% of the cases are asymptomatic till date. So I think we have about 1,200, 1,250 cases, so which means close to about 1,000 cases are asymptomatic. So that's a huge number. And if they wouldn't have been tested, the number of cases in Karnataka would have probably been just 250 or 300 odd.
Yeah, so don't you think that asymptomatic should be an issue, right? Because an asymptomatic person can infect somebody who may have a precondition, and the coronavirus might be very dangerous for that person.
It's probably a blessing in disguise, if you ask me.
That's
so many people are. It's probably a blessing in disguise that we have so many people. 80% of the people, at least in Karnataka, do not show any symptoms. That means our immunity is strong, so Indians are handling it better. I think internationally the number is about 25%, and we are doing 80%. That's phenomenally good numbers. That means that either we are immune to it or we handle it better, or maybe the strain is of a weaker strain.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe it was just a weaker strain. But don't you think, on the counter argument of that, somebody who's asymptomatic would not get tested and would go around the town, and he would end up infecting somebody maybe who is aged, somebody who has diabetes, somebody who has a precondition of breathing or heart issue, and then you can't stop that person. The next person he infects from actually developing serious symptoms.
Yeah, that such an issue would happen. So it is in the interest of people to take care of themselves rather than trying to say that we're going to go after all the asymptomatic cases. I mean, if you start trying to test all the asymptomatic cases or do random samples, just imagine the number of kits that we require. I don't think we are, even after so many days of lockdown, the country is ready to do random tests across the country for a huge population. So even if you do random tests, it's going to be a very small, minuscule population.
Yeah, India has tested about, I don't know how many randomly, but over 1 million people have, 1 million tests have been done. The current rate of
on May 5th, I think we have done about 85,000 tests. Today, we are doing somewhere around 90,000 tests. So our number of tests in the last 15 days have not increased drastically.
So why do you think it's not increased? Because we don't have the kits?
It could be, or it could be that you don't want to test people who are asymptomatic. If you find them asymptomatic, put them in isolation centers. Maybe that's the strategy that government would go about, because the more the number of cases, it means more panic. More panic is economy going down, so it's counterproductive.
Economics person, right? Great. So, but what do you think as a healthcare expert, since you have dealt with so many cases across Uttar Pradesh? I remember that your products, IT products have been a great help for the government. I was just wondering, what is the way out there? So, do we just the lockdown 4 is all about the infection would spread? There's no doubt about that. So,
I think the lockdown 4 is a great strategy to go after containment, because when you have the entire force going after a smaller area rather than going after the entire country, I think the containment would be much better containment rather than when you have the entire country under lockdown. So with a containment strategy, I think they'll be able to minimize the spread. But I think a little bit of random testings have to be done to get to know if people outside population have it.
So people around your locality in Bangalore, are they following the social distancing requirement? What do you see? What is your reaction on the people? People are getting weary. In many places I see today, I saw in the markets, the Delhi markets were getting flooded. So I'm wondering, is this a national phenomenon?
Market is an essential thing, but today we had parks being open in Bangalore, and people were playing basketball and cricket and everything in the park. So, right. So you can see where we are going.
Yes, so I think I think the next 2 weeks would be very, very important to monitor on where this situation goes.
I think our numbers will increase quite drastically, especially since the migrants have come out and most of the places tests have been increasing. So we start doing more tests. So I guess it will happen.
Relevant to your question, Kaushalin Shukla is asking,
exactly.
Becoming the next epicenter of coronavirus India, it is very difficult to say where we are headed to. What do you respond to that, Kiran?
Exactly. I think by holding the migrants for a long period of time, we should have held them longer, though it was, I don't know if the government would have really tried to do it, but if you would have held them longer, we would have ensured that it didn't go into all the villages and all the places, different places. Like, for example, Mandya was a small town, a district headquarters, which didn't have any cases. Now we are looking at 156 cases, mostly from people coming from Mumbai.
And what about this? Malik is asking, what do you think about the mortality rate is so high being in Gujarat? Why is Gujarat mortality rate higher than the rest of the country? Do you think it's because of the mutation strain, which everybody is saying? That's what the Gujarat government said.
We do have many strains. That's what I seem to be reading about. There are different kinds of strains that are there. Like, for example, the Indo strain was supposed to be a much more virulent strain than the rest of the country. I'm sure Gujarat also must be having one particular strain from where it's originated.
So there are three major strains, type A, type B, and type C, whether we call it L, S, or whatever. There are three strains. And as in many viruses, the lethality of the virus sort of decreases with a new strain coming. Wuhan, interestingly, had type B strain and not type A strain. Maybe they had type A earlier and they got undetected through it. And the type A strain is what is affecting, much of US. Yeah, Europe is type B actually. Europe has been type B and type
A, I think so.
Italy is actually type C, which is interesting because Italy got type C, which is an entirely new strain. So we are not really sure how many jumps this virus is going to make. It's making pretty fast. But once India opens up, especially the interstate travel, do you think the mixing of the strains would be an issue? because you're different and Karnataka is different and people travel between the two? Do you think the mixing of the strains could actually lead to
Each time there's a delay in and a mutation happens, I think the strain will be much more less virulent. So all the more better because the virus is going to survive, and the more it tries to survive, it'll try to not kill the host body.
Broadly, that is true, but there is one example which I can think of, which is the Spanish flu. The first wave was actually less killer. It was the second mutation which was more killer. Now, that might have to do with the fact that people got weary and they were not taking the right precautions. But we don't know about that. 100 years ago, we didn't have the tech. But the second wave of the Spanish flu was the most killer strain. And we're not.
Apparently, after this first wave, people came out rejoiced and to say that they've bet the virus, and there was all social distancing was thrown to the wind, I guess. So
I think that's my biggest worry, that we should not. We have not won the victory. We are far away from it.
We're far away. But since we have kept it for such a long period of time, I think we should go around with it. But if you look at the number of deaths. We have more number of deaths from many other things in the country, and we've lived through it. And we've been living, not even batting an eyelid. For example, in Gorakhpur, we know of so many cases in encephalitis. We have TB deaths that keep happening on a regular basis, and nobody says anything about it. So over a period of time, I guess we will just get used to the whole thing.
Kiran, somebody's asking you a question since you talked about this. What exactly does this device do? The
pulse
device. Yes.
Malika, the pulse oximeter is a device to measure the oxygen saturation levels in a body. Ideally, they say that the moment it comes below 90, then you are considered to be, you could be having COVID. One of the symptoms of this is happy hypoxia, where basically even when your oxygen levels go down, you don't realize it. And you don't feel any sort of symptoms, but then you can quickly go into a point where of no return. So oxygen is very important at these points of time. So one of the methods that people say is of catching people who try to avoid the system. You would probably realize that when people came across from countries abroad, they would take paracetamol and come in to avoid getting into the system, so that you don't get COVID. So people who take paracetamol, they could avoid, but you cannot avoid if your oxygen levels are low. And such things are seen in people with acute respiratory issues. So you can always catch people with an SpO2 device.
Great. Thank you, Kiran. More. We've got some very radical views from you, and I'm going to follow the systematic tail on you. So great.
Thank
you. And
thank you, Srijit.
See you again soon. Bye.
Thank you. And bye, Radhan. Bye.
Take care. Right. So that was Kiran Hegde. He's an expert in IT and healthcare. That's exactly the kind of person you need. Data sciences with healthcare. And he was there talking about the asymptomatic infections. That's our lead story. And you heard from this wonderfully brave man, Mohit, who is battling COVID successfully, I'm pretty sure, and who's looking forward to go back to his cricket ground. So our best wishes to him. Let me take a few questions. If there's something very, some of them I've already put in, so that's not a problem. Ritu, Bunny, Soumya, they're all saying hello. Ankur is saying congratulations for the 100th episode and many more to come. Ankur, honestly, I feel maybe we should have less episodes because I hope the coronavirus will give up and we'll not reach the 200th episode. We'll, of course, change the topic. Abhinandan is saying hello, hi. Then we've had Racharla. Racharla is saying hello. Sarvagya is saying hello. Then we have Ankur, who's from Ahmedabad. Asha is saying 100th episode, congratulations. Thank you, Asha. And she's also wishing Mohit all the best. So Mohit, you've got well wishes. Okay. Then Jayanta is saying, I understand that till the vaccine is out, we have to adjust ourselves to fight with COVID by having good immune system, hygiene, social distancing, and be safe. And also be courageous because, just like Mohit, you have to be courageous. You have to deal with it with courage. As he was saying, it's not just about a physical battle. It's not a battle of the human body alone, but also the human mind. So by locking yourself in, he was saying there's a lot of mental stress. And I think combating that requires courage. So courage is also the key. Remember that. Nitin is saying hello, hi, and then we have Abhinandan. Abhinandan is saying, sir, people who came from big cities like Mumbai, Pune are spreading virus in small cities and villages. Well, if you're referring to the migrant workers, maybe they are, but then it's not their fault. Let's put it that way. Someone who's asymptomatic, who doesn't have a cough, cold, or fever or anything, and that person, goes around normal life with the social distancing norms, the mask and everything. That person you can't blame. That person didn't know that he had the virus, right? Had it been a person who had clear symptoms or had a clear knowledge that COVID hai usko, and then he chose to do that, I would have still said that this person should not have done this. But an asymptomatic person, how does he know? He's just as innocent as anyone else is. Congratulations, sir. Can the test be accurate? Asking because some travelers from Dubai tested positive, but the same were tested negative just prior to boarding the flight. Siddhant is saying that. Siddhant, yes, there have been issues of false positives, something called a false positive and a false negative. False positive means that you get a positive test saying that you have the infection, but you actually did not have it. And false negative is when somebody said this person does not have infection, but actually he had it. And the reason is the testing method. The method which is used by PCR is basically like you use a fluorescence on the sample which is taken. The viruses, the strands, the RNA of the virus basically becomes fluorescent, and then you compare it with other viruses, and then the coronavirus, and you figure out if those two scans are similar, then you say that the person is corona positive. However, the identical picture is never achieved because the test is not perfect. So sometimes you say, okay, 80%, if it matches, we'll say the person is positive. But what if the person is 79%? So by that law, 79% is not a match, so it's a negative. But you might have just missed by a percentage. So it's like that. That's why the results are not conclusive. But that goes for any test, by the way. It's not, and most of the tests are accurate. It's only some fraction of the tests which are going false. But most of the tests are true. And as we go, I think we are developing technology. And I think the next cheese jo hame dekhna hoga, that will be the antibody testing. And antibody testing might actually be more relevant because that tests your ability to respond to the virus. But the problem of antibody testing is that does a person still carry the infection or not is difficult to say because antibody तो उसके साथ कई महीनों तक रहेंगी. तो वो दोनों चीजें हैं. तो अभी तो जो हम टेस्ट यूज कर रहे हैं, that's what we have. There's another test which is going around where you can use saliva of a person to actually test, which makes the test faster and also less painful and much cheaper. That is being tested in US. That test method, once it comes out as approved, then we might have a better testing method. But testing is the key, by the way. Okay, we've taken this. Okay. Abhinandan saying, sir, people okay, we've taken this one. This question we've taken. Let's come to Viresh. Testing per million population less than any country in the world in India. Testing per million population is less than any other country in the world. No, that's not true, Viresh. I agree with you that the testing rate is low. But I don't agree with you when you say that we are lower than any country. I can tell you another many countries which are lower than India. In fact, some countries are actually close to India as well. If you look at the testing per capita in Japan, you'll not find that much of a difference. If you look at a country like Vietnam, there's not much of a difference. And India has ramped up. Of course, much more needs to be done, but we are still improving. So testing per capita is improving, but to understand the challenge of India is that we are so big. We have 1.4 billion people. That huge number requires so many tests. And as coronavirus spreads, now that some people are saying it's going to villages and so on, you have to start testing people in the villages. But back then, a month ago, why would you not try to test someone in Barabanki village? Because you knew that यहाँ पे तो नहीं आया infection ना, तो अब वहाँ test नहीं कर रहे थे. अब हम testing expand करेंगे. But as Kiran was saying, the number of new tests seem to be limited. 80,000 अगर हर रोज हो रहे हैं, I think that has to ramp up. And if that doesn't happen, then that's a bit of a worry to me. But let's see over a long-term trend what happens. Gauri saying, Gauri, unfortunately, we could not get you here because you have some connection problem. I wanted to get you here. Congratulations for the 100th episode. It's a pleasure to witness this beautiful journey. May you keep inspiring us always. Thank you, Gauri. Nitin is saying, early morning sun exposure increases vitamin D3, which is important in pandemic to increase immunity. In fact, Nitin, it has been conclusively proven by the American research, the government research, that UV, ultraviolet rays, but from the sun. Now, that doesn't mean you start, going to any UV. The sun rays, which has UV, sun rays tend to significantly decrease the livability of this virus. So the virus dies much faster as an aerosol, suspended in the air when it's in the sun, and which has UV. And the virus also, if it's on the surface, it also dies much sooner in presence of sun and ultraviolet rays, and also heat. So summer would sort of reduce the virus transmission. We are in the middle of the summer, but that doesn't mean it becomes zero. It still be there, and that's why social distancing remains most important. That's your only tool to fight this virus, right? Then Priya is saying congratulations, thank you. So that's it, friends. Thank you, and I appreciate your time again. We were very fortunate to get some very good experts today, and we'll keep getting more experts. And do send in your opinions, your suggestions, whatever you think is needs to be done, or should have been done already, or should be done in the future. It'd be great to hear your suggestions. Always been well. Remember, lockdown 4 is here. बट लॉकडाउन 4 का मतलब ये नहीं है कुछ रिलैक्सेशंस आ गई हैं, बट वो रिलैक्सेशंस आर्थिक कारणों से आई हैं, बिकॉज वी नीड टू रन एन इकोनॉमी. वो इसलिए नहीं आई हैं दैट वी हैव डिफीटेड द वायरस, बिकॉज द वायरस इज फार फ्रॉम बीइंग डिफीटेड. द वायरस इज राइट देयर इन द मिडल ऑफ अस. समटाइम्स इट डज नॉट इवन टेल द सिग्नल, सो एसिम्प्टोमेटिक भी हो सकता है. द वायरस हैज रीच्ड मेनी मोर प्लेसेस देन इट यूज्ड टू बी, बट दैट्स द नेचर ऑफ द वायरस. No other country has been able to do this. Containing this has proved to be very difficult. A lot of us may, I hope don't, but some of us may get the virus. In that situation, one has to be courageous, one has to be intelligent, and one has to be sensitive that one has to protect people around them. So that's the nature of the virus. We fight it. We win it, but it takes time. The vaccine is, a lot of you have been asking, the vaccine, I would not be able to give you any significant update till June, mid of June. Moderna did come out with some preliminary findings saying that it does seem to make the right antibodies. However, that is way too initial to predict anything. So I didn't even take it up in this episode, but since some of you asked, I had to tell this. It's way too early to find it. Anywhere between June 15th to the end of June is when we will be able to find whether the clinical trials of all those vaccines which are happening, whether they've come to some positive result. It may be a partial positive, which means you have to go back and rechange, make a new sort of set of variables or new set of chemicals which have to be inserted. So जब तक वो नहीं आता तब तक कुछ भी कंक्लूसिव कहना मुश्किल है, और जब तक वैक्सीन नहीं आती या दवा नहीं आती तब तक हमें सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग के जरिए लड़ना होगा, और लड़ने के बाद भी कुछ लोगों को वायरस होगा, और आप इसके लिए तैयार रहिए. अगर वायरस किसी को होता है आपके जान पहचान में, परिवार में, या हम में से किसी को खुद हो जाता है, तो हमारी जिम्मेदारी देश और समाज के प्रति यही है कि हम उसको केयरफुली हैंडल करें. हम ऐसे हैंडल करें कि कोई पैनिक ना हो, किसी और को वायरस ना लगे हमसे, क्योंकि जो ब्रेक द चेन है वो फिर आपको खुद करनी होगी. तो लगे रहिए, डटे रहिए, और देश भी चल रहा है. तो जैसे प्रधानमंत्री ने कहा था, जान भी और जहान. आई विश यू द बेस्ट ऑफ हेल्थ. यू आर ब्रेव पीपल. You've done a good job till lockdown 3, and I'm sure you'll do a great job of lockdown 4. Have a good day. Bye.